Growing up, I was someone who always loved movies like Godzilla, King Kong, or basically anything else that featured a huge monster. So finding Monster Hunter World was crazy for me because this game actually manages to be somewhat relaxing and super charming, but you certainly get to go one-on-one or with a group against huge monsters. I'm here today to talk about Monster Hunter World, one of my favorite games ever, but I'm also going to try to be non-biased. I am going to talk about the good things, and I'm also going to talk about some things that aren't very good. And I'm actually currently going through my second playthrough of this game, and I have a series on this channel, so feel free to check it out. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because the fact that I have played this game a second time actually has made me notice some things that maybe could use some improvement. We're going to start out with the good. So time after time, I keep repeating myself, but Monster Hunter World has some of the most beautiful environments in any game that I have ever played, ever. It's not even that they are super massive in scale or in size, but it really is in the uniqueness and in the charm of these worlds and how much there is to discover. What's also really cool is the monsters that call these environments their home. And each of these monsters contributes to the overall environment, and it really does just create a cool vibe. Along with that, the environment has a weather system, so there are sunny days, cloudy days, there's rainy days. You also get to see these maps at night, and it really is cool to just play with various conditions. Additionally, the hub worlds are also amazing in this game. My actual favorite of all the hub worlds is the OG hub world, the first one that you get access to. It literally feels like home for me. Another really good thing about this game is it's super accessible. So I have always been a solo player, and I have not really taken on anything in multiplayer in this game. I know a ton of people who only play this game multiplayer and have an absolute blast. But one of my favorite things about this game is that as a solo player, you're not really solo at all because you have your Palico. And having the Palico is amazing. It's so much fun watching your Palico get stronger just like you, watching your Palico develop specific skills. And over time, especially in the end game, your Palico will become very helpful. Monster Hunter World does a really good job at finding this balance of being really challenging, but also allowing a player to grind more and strategize to make the challenge a lot less. And it always does feel rewarding. This game isn't just about skill, it's about being prepared. And if you are super prepared, you're going to notice that the fights are a lot easier. Or even sometimes it's really rewarding when you fight a monster and that monster kicks your butt, and then you just go back, grind some other monsters, level up some of your gear, get different gear, and then you kick that monster's butt. It really is rewarding. The next thing we're going to have to talk about is the actual monsters themselves, because my goodness are these things beautiful. All of them really do feel like they have unique personalities. It's super cool when you are just trying to follow a specific monster and then a different monster just casually passes by and you're basically holding your breath hoping that they don't choose to be aggressive, because some monsters are aggressive and some aren't, which really is cool. I can't stress enough, all of these monsters feel like they have unique personalities. Something that never gets old is watching turf wars, watching two monsters fight against each other. Truly is a blast, never gets old for me, and I love just being a spectator. By far, my favorite aspect of this game is being Ash from Pokemon. Not really, but I actually love just capturing monsters in this game. It feels amazing. And every time that I do enough damage and then I lay down that trap and then I throw down that trank bomb and the notification pops up that I captured the monster, it feels so rewarding every single time. I can't stress it enough. And I don't know why. Let me know if I'm the only one that feels that way or if you guys also feel that way. Now, I have talked about so much about this game and so many good aspects of this game, but I have yet to even touch on the gameplay. First off, there is so much gameplay variety. Not only does this game offer a large variety of weapons, but each of these weapons are completely different for the most part. My first playthrough, I beat the entire game, and I'm now on to the expansion, and I've only used a great sword. Now, on my channel, I've been doing a new playthrough where I've been using the bow. It literally has felt like a completely different game, and it has been so much fun to look at this game from a completely different perspective because I'm using this different weapon. Now, from my understanding, I think everyone kind of has a similar experience to what I had, where I started out by choosing the greatsword because I just vibed with it and I thought it looked cool. So I picked it up, and I really, really enjoyed it at first, but I wasn't very good with it. I stuck with it throughout the main story. I noticed that the more hours I put into this game, the better I was getting with the greatsword. And once you get good with a weapon, this game really becomes a vibe. Everyone has their weapon that they vibe with, but once you find it and you really sink some hours into it, this game gets super satisfying. So again, I can only speak on my experience with the greatsword, but I had an absolute blast with it, and that's why I'm excited to hopefully get good with the bow, because I'm kind of trash so far. Now, as a casual gamer, I'm going to be non-biased. I really respect the Iceborne expansion. I am not great at this game. I will say the Iceborne expansion does add a bit more challenge to the game, but I think for a lot of people, that's exactly what people wanted. Iceborne also adds the clutch call, which is a great addition to the game, and I think adds even more uniqueness to this game. The last thing that I'll mention for the good is the campaign's pacing is wonderful. I think this game really does a great job at slowly introducing you to easy monsters, allowing you to get good with them, and then slowly introducing more difficult monsters over time. Furthermore, this game also does a really good job at introducing mechanics slowly. In my opinion, this game is super new player friendly and is the best way to get into the Monster Hunter series. Now it's time for me to talk about some things that could maybe use some improvement or potentially isn't great about this game. So let's waste no time. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. We all know what I'm going to say first. This game has unskippable cutscenes and they are absolutely brutal. On the PC, you are able to get a mod and that will take care of that, but for console players, you have to suffer through, and I'm sorry, because it really is brutal. Some of these cutscenes just drag out, and this sets up my next point. The story just isn't super interesting, and that's fine, because this is a game called Monster Hunter, and we hunt monsters. That's fun enough, that's all we need. But the fact that there are these cutscenes that you can't skip in between, and the story isn't super interesting, just feels like there's a lot of time wasted. Speaking of time wasted, there are a lot of missions in this game where you're basically just doing nothing. And again, it's just wasting your time. You're just slowly wandering, you're just following scout flies, getting to an objective, letting a cutscene play, and rinse and repeat. Sometimes it does lead to a monster, which at least feels satisfying, but sometimes it doesn't, and it really just feels like a waste of time. Like the game is just making you do this stuff. Now, something that is worth mentioning, my first playthrough of this game, I actually didn't really notice, and I really enjoyed playing through the story for the first time. However, as I'm going through my Monster Hunter World playthrough, you literally can hear it as I'm playing. You'll check out some of my videos and you'll hear me talk about it. It really does just feel like a lot of these cutscenes drag out, and some of these missions even just drag out unnecessarily. Now, I would be super curious if anyone else feels this way, but I actually feel like the strongest content that's in the base game of Monster Hunter World is in the first half of it. I feel like the first half has stronger environments, stronger monster variety and monster design, and just overall felt better. I enjoy all of the environments in this game, I really do. But I just have to mention that I do think the first few are insanely strong, whereas the rest are very strong. For me, it was like my expectations were so high that I thought this game was going to just continue wowing me, and it didn't necessarily continue wowing me, it just continued doing what it did, and I still absolutely loved it. I hope that makes sense. I was also a little disappointed to see, instead of getting an insanely unique cast of monsters towards the end game, we just got variations of current monsters. I know that would be asking a lot, and we did get more in the expansion, but I just thought that was worth noting. I also won't include any spoilers here, but I also will say that I didn't really enjoy the final fight at all. I thought the base game's ending was kind of anticlimactic, especially that final fight. And the last negative that I'm going to talk about with this game, again, is totally personal preference. This Iceborne and the end game does take a pretty big leap from what the base game was. I think one of the easiest ways that I can exemplify this is by talking about grinding. So in the base game, I feel like when you would struggle on a monster at the very end, you would need to just grind for a little bit, couple hours, do a few fights, get a little bit of better gear, and then eventually you'd be able to conquer that monster. For me, and maybe because I'm just trash at the game, it feels like in the end game in Iceborne, I'm basically forced to grind for hours upon hours upon hours in order to just progress a little bit. And there are way more monsters that I have to conquer. So it really does feel like the end game is a lot more time demanding than the original base game, which again is personal preference because I know a lot of people love that. A lot of people are much better at this game than me, but I just wanted to share for my casual gamers out there. I wish I had time to play more, trust me. In conclusion, Monster Hunter World is one of the best games that I've ever played. It's extremely unique and I've never played anything like it. It's really nice to play a game like this because it's a super cool break from all the other genres that we're getting burnt out from. It's certainly not just an open world RPG. It's not a wave-based game. It's not a looter shooter or anything like that. It's a very unique, charming game with its own established lore. If you're willing to be patient and put some hours into this game and willing to learn, you are in store for one of the best experiences in gaming. Just save your bathroom and water breaks for when the cutscenes start.